volleyball coach's whistle pierced the gymnasium air as she pointed directly at Sarah Martinez. "You're off the team, Martinez. Your attitude doesn't fit our program." The other players watched in stunned silence as Sarah quietly packed her gear, her calloused hands that had diffused IEDs in Afghanistan, trembling slightly as she folded her jersey. What the coach didn't know was that those same hands had earned a classified demolitions medal that only a handful of people in the world even knew existed. As Sarah walked toward the exit, she caught a glimpse of two men in crisp uniforms entering the gym, their eyes scanning the room with the precision of trained operatives. One of them was holding a folder marked classified, with her name on it. Sarah Martinez sat in the locker room, staring at her hands. To everyone else, they looked like ordinary college student hands, maybe a little more scarred than most. But Sarah knew better. These hands had dismantled improvised explosive devices in the dusty streets of Kandahar. They had saved countless lives by carefully cutting wires that could detonate with the slightest tremor. Now they were shaking as she tried to process what had just happened on the volleyball court. Coach Williams had finally done what she'd been threatening to do for weeks, cut Sarah from the team for what she called attitude problems and excessive absences. If only the coach knew that those absences were mandatory therapy sessions for combat veterans, and that Sarah's so-called attitude was actually the hypervigilance that had kept her alive through 3 tours of duty as an explosive ordnance disposal specialist. The other players filed into the locker room, their conversations dying as they noticed Sarah still sitting there. Jessica, the team captain, approached cautiously. "Hey Sarah, I'm sorry about what happened out there. Coach was out of line." Sarah looked up, her dark eyes holding depths that no 22-year-old should possess. "It's fine, Jess. Maybe she's right. Maybe I don't belong here." The words tasted bitter in her mouth. She had survived roadside bombs, insurgent attacks, and the constant pressure of knowing that one wrong move could kill her entire unit. But somehow, fitting into college life felt like the most impossible mission she'd ever faced. The simple act of spiking a volleyball sometimes triggered flashbacks to the sound of explosions, and the team's complaints about her intensity during practice made her feel more isolated than she had ever felt in the Afghan desert. As Sarah packed her gear, her fingers brushed against the small, concealed medal she wore on a chain around her neck. The explosive ordnance disposal badge was public knowledge, but the classified commendation medal hidden behind it told a different story. It represented a mission so sensitive that even her family didn't know the details. She had been part of a joint special forces operation that had neutralized a terrorist bomb-making facility, personally disarming 17 sophisticated IEDs in a single day while under enemy fire. The medal was a testament to courage that few would ever understand. Yet here she was, being dismissed from a college volleyball team for having an attitude problem. The irony wasn't lost on her. She had been trusted with the lives of Navy SEALs and Green Berets, but her volleyball coach thought she was too difficult to work with. The gymnasium began to empty as practice officially ended, but Sarah remained in the locker room, gathering the courage to face the world outside. She thought about her father, a Vietnam veteran who had warned her about the challenges of returning to civilian life. "The hardest part isn't the memories, Mija," he had told her. "It's pretending to be someone you're not so that people feel comfortable around you." She was living that truth every day, dumbing down her instincts, suppressing her training, and trying to fit into a world that seemed impossibly fragile compared to the one she had left behind. Every car backfire made her drop to the ground. Every crowded room had her scanning for exits and potential threats. Every unexpected noise sent her heart racing, but she had learned to hide these reactions, to smile and nod and pretend that everything was normal. Walking across campus after being cut from the team, Sarah noticed things that other students never would. The way the maintenance worker carried his tool bag, too loose, leaving it vulnerable to theft. The positioning of the campus security cameras, blind spots everywhere. The evacuation routes from each building, poorly marked and probably insufficient in a real emergency. These observations weren't paranoia. They were survival skills that had been drilled into her through years of military training. But they also served as constant reminders that she was different, that she had seen and done things that set her apart from her peers in ways they would never understand. As she reached her dormitory, Sarah made a decision. Maybe it was time to stop trying so hard to fit in. Maybe it was time to accept that some bridges, once crossed, changed you forever. She had no idea that tomorrow would bring visitors who understood exactly who she was and what she had sacrificed in service to her country. The next morning, Ra was sitting in her advanced chemistry class when the department secretary appeared at the door, whispering urgently to Professor Hendricks. All eyes turned to Sarah as the professor called her name. "Miss Martinez, you're needed in the dean's office immediately." The walk across campus felt surreal, each step echoing with possibilities she couldn't quite grasp. As she approached the administration building, she noticed 2 black SUVs parked in the visitor spaces, their occupants nowhere to be seen. Something about the vehicles sent a familiar chill down her spine. They had the same understated authority as the transport vehicles she had seen in Afghanistan. Inside the dean's office, Sarah found herself face to face with 2 men in dress uniforms she recognized immediately. A Navy SEAL commander and an Army Special Forces colonel, both wearing ribbons that spoke of classified operations and dangerous missions. "Sergeant Martinez," the colonel said, using her military rank with a respect that made her stand straighter. "We've been looking for you." Dean Morrison looked confused as he gestured toward the chairs arranged in his office. "I'm not sure I understand what's happening here, but these gentlemen requested to meet with one of our students." The SEAL commander stepped forward, his weathered face breaking into a slight smile. "Sir, what's happening here is long overdue. Sergeant Martinez performed actions in Afghanistan that were classified at the highest levels. Due to the sensitive nature of her missions, she was never properly recognized for her service. That changes today." Sarah felt her world shift as the colonel opened a leather folder. "Sarah Elizabeth Martinez, by order of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and with the approval of the Secretary of Defense, you are hereby awarded the Defense Superior Service Medal for exceptional meritorious service in a position of significant responsibility during Operation Enduring Freedom." The medal ceremony that followed was unlike anything the small college had ever witnessed. Word had spread quickly through the campus network and students began gathering outside the dean's office. Coach Williams arrived, looking confused and somewhat pale as she learned about Sarah's background. The SEAL commander's voice carried clearly as he read from the citation. "Sergeant Martinez demonstrated extraordinary courage and technical expertise while serving as the lead explosive ordnance disposal specialist for Joint Task Force Phoenix. Over the course of 14 months, she successfully neutralized over 300 improvised explosive devices, saving an estimated 800 coalition and civilian lives. During the raid on a high-value terrorist bomb-making facility, Sergeant Martinez disarmed 17 sophisticated devices while under direct enemy fire, enabling the capture of key enemy personnel and preventing a planned attack on a civilian hospital." The words hung in the air like a revelation, painting a picture of heroism that seemed impossible to reconcile with the quiet student they thought they knew. As the ceremony continued, Sarah's teammates from the volleyball team pressed closer to the windows, their faces reflecting a mixture of awe and shame. Jessica whispered to the others, "We had no idea. All those times she seemed distant or intense, she was probably dealing with memories we can't even imagine." Coach Williams stood frozen as the full weight of her mistake became clear. She had dismissed a decorated war hero for having an attitude problem, never realizing that Sarah's hypervigilance and intensity were the very qualities that had made her exceptional in combat. The colonel continued reading. "Sergeant Martinez's actions directly contributed to the success of multiple special operations missions and exemplified the highest traditions of military service. Her courage under fire and technical mastery of explosive ordnance disposal procedures saved countless lives and disrupted enemy operations throughout the region." The medal itself seemed to glow as it was pinned to Sarah's civilian clothes, a tangible symbol of sacrifice and service that had remained hidden for too long. The aftermath of the ceremony was transformative in ways Sarah hadn't expected. Coach Williams approached her with tears in her eyes, offering not just an apology, but a heartfelt invitation to rejoin the team with full support for her therapy schedule and any other needs related to her military service. "I was wrong, Sarah. I was so wrong, and I'm sorry. You belong here, and we're honored to have you." The other students looked at her differently now, not as the intense, difficult teammate they had struggled to understand, but as a genuine hero whose sacrifices had protected freedoms they had taken for granted. As the crowd dispersed and the officials prepared to leave, the SEAL commander pulled Sarah aside. "You know, Sergeant, there are programs for veterans like you, ways to use your skills and experience to help other young service members transition back to civilian life. You don't have to carry this burden alone anymore." For the first time in months, Sarah felt something she had almost forgotten: hope. She was no longer hiding who she was or what she had accomplished. The classified medal around her neck was finally matched by public recognition, and more importantly, by acceptance from the community she had been struggling to join. Sarah Martinez's story reminds us that heroes walk among us every day, often carrying burdens we cannot see and sacrifices we cannot imagine. Her journey from isolation to recognition illustrates the challenges faced by countless veterans who struggled to transition from military service to civilian life while carrying the weight of classified missions and traumatic experiences. The courage she showed on the battlefield was matched by the courage it took to continue fighting for her place in a world that didn't understand her value. When we look at the people around us, in our schools, our workplaces, our communities, we should remember that we might be in the presence of someone whose service and sacrifice have shaped the very freedoms we enjoy. These stories of hidden heroes serve as powerful reminders that respect and understanding can transform lives. Sarah's teammates learned that what they had perceived as intensity and difficulty was actually the mark of someone who had carried tremendous responsibility and made life-or-death decisions under unimaginable pressure. Her coach discovered that sometimes what we see as problems are actually strengths forged in circumstances we've never faced. And Sarah herself learned that she didn't have to choose between honoring her military service and finding her place in civilian life. She could be both a decorated combat veteran and a valued member of her age community. If Sarah's story has moved you, please take a moment to honor the veterans in your own life. Subscribe to our channel for more stories of everyday heroes whose extraordinary service often goes unrecognized. Share this video to spread awareness about the challenges faced by our returning service members. And remember that behind every uniform, past or present, is a human being whose sacrifice has helped preserve the life we all cherish. These men and women have earned our respect, our support, and our commitment to ensuring their stories are never forgotten. Hit that notification bell to join our community of people who believe that every hero deserves recognition and every story of service deserves to be told.